Welcome to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the ages, exploring the complexities and wonders of human history. Today, we find ourselves at the threshold of one of the most pivotal moments in modern history, the French Revolution. This tumultuous period, which shook the foundations of Europe and beyond, was a maelstrom of ideas, passions, and upheaval that would forever alter the course of human civilization. In the late 18th century, France was a nation beset on all sides by troubles. The once mighty monarchy, now headed by King Louis XVI and his queen, Marie Antoinette, was struggling to maintain its authority in the face of mounting debt, food shortages, and growing discontent among the population. The burden of taxation, which fell heavily on the common people, had created widespread resentment towards the nobility and the clergy, who were seen as exempt from the hardships faced by the masses. In the midst of this turmoil, the ideas of the Enlightenment, with their emphasis on reason, liberty, and equality, were spreading like wildfire among the educated classes. Thinkers such as Voltaire, Rousseau, and Montesquieu had laid the intellectual groundwork for a revolution that would challenge the very foundations of the ancien regime. Their writings, which advocated for the principles of democracy, individual rights, and social justice, inspired a generation of young intellectuals, including Maximilien Robespierre, Georges Danton, and Camille Desmoulins, who would become key players in the drama that was to come. As the financial situation in France continued to deteriorate, the monarchy found itself increasingly unable to cope with the crisis. The burden of debt, which had been exacerbated by the country's involvement in the American Revolutionary War, had reached catastrophic proportions. In a desperate bid to address the crisis, King Louis XVI summoned the Estates General, a representative assembly that had not met since 1804, in the hope of finding a solution to the nation's woes. The Estates General, which convened on May 5, 1789, was composed of representatives from the three estates, the nobility, the clergy, and the commoners. However, the Third Estate, which represented the vast majority of the population, soon found itself at odds with the other two estates over issues of representation and taxation. The deadlock that ensued would ultimately prove to be the spark that ignited the powder keg of revolution. As the summer of 1789 wore on, tensions between the three estates continued to escalate. The Third Estate, now styling itself as the National Assembly, began to take bold action, adopting the Tennis Court Oath on June 20, in which they vowed to continue their work on a new constitution despite the king's orders to disband. In the sweltering heat of a Parisian summer, the city was alive with rumors, pamphlets, and passionate oratory. The streets were filled with crowds of angry citizens who were becoming increasingly radicalized by the day. The National Assembly, now the focal point of opposition to the monarchy, continued to push for reform, even as the king and his supporters dug in their heels, determined to resist any further erosion of their power. As the summer of 1789 wore on, the city of Paris became a cauldron of discontent, with tensions between the National Assembly and the monarchy reaching a boiling point. On July 11, 1789, King Louis XVI made a fateful decision, dismissing Jacques Necker, the finance minister who had been sympathetic to the Third Estate, and replacing him with the conservative Baron de Besenval. This move was seen as a direct challenge to the National Assembly, and it sparked widespread outrage among the population. On July 14, 1789, a mob of Parisians, fueled by anger and desperation, stormed the Bastille prison, a symbol of the hated ancien regime. The fall of the Bastille marked a turning point in the revolution, as it demonstrated the power of the people and the weakness of the monarchy. As the news of the Bastille's capture spread, it ignited a wave of violent protests and uprisings across France, with peasants and commoners rising up against their feudal lords and the nobility. In the aftermath of the Bastille's fall, the National Assembly continued to push for reform, adopting the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen on August 26, 1789. This seminal document, which enshrined the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity, would become a cornerstone of the revolution and a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples around the world. As the Abbé Sieyès, one of the Declaration's authors, famously declared, "The National Assembly is the nation itself, and the nation is sovereign." As the autumn of 1789 gave way to winter, the revolution began to take on a more radical tone. The Women's March on Versailles, which took place on October 5 to 6, 1789, saw thousands of women, armed with pikes and pitchforks, march on the royal palace, demanding bread and justice. The marchers, who were largely made up of market women and artisans' wives, forced the royal family to return to Paris, where they would be subject to the scrutiny and control of the National Assembly. The winter of 1789-1790 saw the rise of the radical Jacobin Club, which would become a dominant force in the revolution. Led by fiery orators like Maximilien Robespierre and Georges Danton, the Jacobins pushed for ever more extreme measures, including the execution of King Louis XVI and the establishment of a republic. As Robespierre declared, the revolution is not a mere change of dynasty, but a complete transformation of society. In June 1791, the royal family attempted to flee France in disguise, but they were recognized and arrested at Varennes, marking a further erosion of the monarchy's authority. The following month, the National Assembly adopted the Constitution of 1791, which established a constitutional monarchy with a limited role for the king. However, this compromise would prove short-lived, as the revolution continued to radicalize and the monarch's fate was all but sealed. As the Constitution of 1791 proved ineffective in stemming the tide of radicalization, the monarchy's fate was all but sealed. In April 1792, France declared war on Austria, marking the beginning of a long and bloody conflict that would eventually engulf Europe. The war effort, combined with economic hardship and food shortages, further eroded support for the monarch, and in September 1792, the National Convention abolished the monarchy, declaring France a republic. The following months saw the rise of the Committee of Public Safety, led by Maximilien Robespierre, which exercised executive power and implemented a reign of terror, during which thousands of perceived enemies of the revolution were executed. The fall of Robespierre in July 1794 marked a turning point, as the committee's power was broken and the terror slowly subsided. In 1795, a new constitution established the Directory, a 5-member executive council that governed France until 1799. The later years of the French Revolution were marked by continued turmoil, including the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte, who seized power in 1799 and established the consulate, marking the end of the revolution. As the French historian Albert Mathiez observed, the revolution was not a mere change of dynasty, but a complete transformation of society, which created a new France founded on the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Today, the French Revolution is remembered as a pivotal moment in modern history, one that shaped the course of European and world politics. Its legacy can be seen in the spread of democratic ideals, the rise of nationalism, and the decline of feudalism. As the historian Eric Hobsbawm noted, the French Revolution was the first great social revolution of the modern era, and its impact was felt across the globe. In France, the revolution is celebrated as a national holiday, with ceremonies and commemorations taking place each year on July 14th, the anniversary of the storming of the Bastille. The revolution's ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity remain enshrined in the French Constitution, and its legacy continues to inspire and influence politics, art, and culture around the world. The French Revolution's impact can also be seen in the many movements and revolutions that it inspired, from the Haitian Revolution to the Russian Revolution, and from the abolition of slavery to the feminist movement. As the historian Lynn Hunt observed, the French Revolution created a new political vocabulary, one that emphasized the principles of human rights, democracy, and social justice. In conclusion, the French Revolution was a complex and multifaceted event that continues to shape our understanding of modern history. Its legacy is a testament to the power of human imagination and the enduring appeal of democratic ideals. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.